So the big news in the NFL in general was the new kickoff rule. And make no mistake, this is a giant, massive change. Like this is the game. The game will be unrecognizable when kickoffs strike. The obviously very first play of the game, like it's going to be unrecognizable. This very first play, like there's a lot of rule changes, and you're like, oh, I hate how they can't hit quarterbacks. Oh, I hate how they got rid of you can't have a wedge anymore. Like there's all these rules where it's like, well, what's the catch? What isn't? And it like kind of pops up here and there, and it's annoying when it pops up. But this is going to make the game look completely different from the very first play. I'm not gonna. You probably know most of the details on it, but basically the rule is the kickoff points 30 to 35-yard line, and the kick coverage and kick return teams are just 5 yards apart, and you can't go until the ball's kicked and lands, and then you go. So instead of having, the kickoff return
40-yard freaking head start, right?
Dead sprint just being missiles, they're like, all right, let's have these guys collide with only a 5-yard barrier, so they're not at top speed colliding into each other. Kind of more, it's more contact, less collision. It's more sumo wrestling than getting shot out of a cannon, which is their philosophy. Ironically, it passed 29-3. I want to guess what side the Raiders were on. they bet against it. This is something that the NFL rarely does well. Changing rules, like the hip drop tackle. It's like if you're a small corner, how are you tackling a tight end? If not, like you can't tackle high, you can't tackle low. Now you can't do the hip drop. It's like normally when the NFL changes rules for safety, they don't care. They're just trying to not get sued 20 years from now.
They just don't want to get sued.
CTE cases start coming up, so they don't care, but they have to like pretend that they care. And when they normally pass these rules, it's just like, all right, you can't do that anymore. We don't care if the game sucks now. This time, there were 3 special team coordinators in the NFL that came and saved this. They're like, look, if you're just going to get rid of kickoffs, let us get in the lab and cook something up. And this is part XFL. This type of thing was used in like some like junior college leagues to kind of like test it, see how it panned out, that kind of thing. And they actually came up with something creative for a change. This is the NFL's best example of making a perfect bad rule. They did a bad rule correctly. This is stupid. Just let them do the kickoff. But if you're gonna neuter it, they allowed these special teams coordinators to at least be creative and make something that could be fun. It won't be as fun as a kickoff, but it's better than just like, all right, the offense starts on the 25-yard line.
Yeah, all 11 kickoffs in the Super Bowl none of them were returned. So it's just kind of that's what in the biggest stage, all that stuff gets highlighted. But man, I hated that wedge, dude. I hated that wedge. I hated wedge breaking. I hated it. I hated it.
I loved it. Oh, I loved it. The craziest guy on your team was always the wedge buster. The dude that had like the biggest neck roll, the guy that like smashed his head against the locker in pregame to get like jacked up. That was always your wedge buster. The Justin Gaethje of your football team.
Just going horizontal into it.
Face blow that thing up. That was the way to go. So best case, like, look, I've already given up on the NFL doing the right thing, but at least they did the wrong thing correctly. Because these special teams coordinators are like, dude, if we don't do something, we're going to become extinct. Like the NFL is trying to get rid of special teams. They're trying to get rid of defense, but they're trying to get rid of special teams first. If we don't cook something up, we're not going to have a job. And so they're like, here's at least this like creative way to do it. And they made it, and this is like gives the option for it to be overly complicated. Like it's going to be actual plays. Like normally special team, like kickoff return, it's like, are we going left or are we going right? Like that's 90% of it. And there's details as to how they do things, and every special teams coordinator will say like, oh, ours is different. It's like you're going left, you're going right. That's 90% of the time. Now it's going to be like plays. Like you're going to have guys like basically like pulling. Are we running like a version of like an ISO? Are we, you know what I mean? It's like you've got basically like 9 linemen and 2 running, because you have 2 returnmen. 9 linemen and 2 running backs. What kind of running play can you cook up with something like that? So it's going to be anarchy. And I kind of like watching things burn, because there's going to be some teams that cook up something awesome. They cook up something great. And they're going to have
minds. They just sit there in their nerdery and just cook something up.
Nerd off, right? There are going to be some games teams that have no business beating other teams are going to, because they're going to get like 2 kickoff returns for a touchdown because they're running a play that some special teams coordinator was not ready for. Hey, you made it to the end of our video. Great job. I know you want more. Go ahead and click the next video. And if you're feeling